very good afternoon to the attendees and to the panelists of today's webinar on implementing an efficient statewide benefits management system being organized by the Center for Digital Economy Policy Research. Given an unusually harsh year for people with the COVID pandemic snatching many livelihoods from people, there is an urgent need for a consultation process to revisit the issue of efficient delivery of government benefits. The issue is not just about leakages, which is of course captured well in Rajiv Gandhi's statement that only 17 paisa was delivered of every rupee one. And we have heard that repeatedly. However, that issue is perhaps well addressed by the direct benefits transfer mechanism, which has been again implemented widely in this country. The issue is also about how citizens can actually discover what their entitlements are and for what are they eligible for. Can the government find the eligible beneficiaries and provide them with the benefits rather than the citizens trying to go from department to department and to painfully find out what the benefits are and then apply for the benefits and get those benefits? It's a very long drawn and painful process. To discuss these issues, I'm joined today by a very eminent set of people who have been working in this area for decades and who really don't need much of an introduction. We have Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, Principal Secretary of Industries and Commerce and Information Technology Departments of the Telangana government. Among his many other distinctions, which are actually very numerous, he was also awarded the Royal Order of the Polar Star by His Majesty, the King of Sweden in 2019. He's also my senior from IIM Calcutta. We have Mr. Anirudh Tiwari, Additional Chief Secretary, Agriculture, Horticulture, Food Processing and Governance Reforms, Government of Punjab. Mr. Tiwari holds a Master's in Public Policy and a Master's in Economics from Duke University and Punjab University, respectively. We had worked together extensively as part of Progressive Punjab initiative, where Mr. Tiwari had designed and implemented very innovative mechanisms of a one government concept. We also have with us Mr. Vipin Singh, the Chief Executive Officer, Center for E-Governance, Government of Karnataka, who is an Indian Forest Service officer. He has been deeply involved in many of the key e-government initiatives of Government of Karnataka, along with Mr. Rajiv Chawla, Secretary E-Governance. He's also my senior from IIT Kanpur. We have Mr. Amit Shukla, who is the CEO of GovTech startup EasyGov and a former e-governance consultant with experience in benefits delivery system across multiple countries. He has actually implemented a benefits delivery system in India, and I think he's working very closely with the Government of Karnataka on some of these initiatives. Mr. Shukla has actually been specifically invited by the Punjab government for this particular panel discussion. Thank you, Mr. Shukla, for being here. We have Mr. Rajiv Singh, Vice President and Business Head, Public Services and Utilities, SAP India Private Limited. He is passionate about digital transformation in public sector and has led some of the largest transformational projects of the country for SAP, including for Department of Post, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, utility sector reforms under ARDRP and IPDS, unreserved ticketing systems of railways, and so on and so forth. He's been involved in many such initiatives. As part of SAP's CSR project, he's also involved in Code Unnati initiative, which has helped more than 4 lakh youths become digitally literate, basically transforming them from digital illiteracy to literacy. Mr. Singh holds a MBA from SPJIMR Mumbai and has a BTech in Mechanical Engineering from IIT Delhi. With that, I'll start with a question to Mr. Jayesh Ranjan. Sir, help us understand the challenges of an optimized benefit delivery system. Why is it so difficult to provide benefits to people?
Sure, and thank you, Jayjeet, and greetings to fellow panelists, greeting to all the attendees. Let me first of all congratulate C-DEP for putting together such a useful and such a topical webinar on a topic which has been bothering different governments at the national level, at the state level for generations, if I may say so. So I'm glad that you have framed the issue in a positive way. It is not just about plugging the leakages, but it is also ensuring that those who are eligible, how easy it is, how facilitative it is for them to decide which schemes they best fit in and very easily access those kind of schemes also. So let me first of all speak about the leakages. So leakages in the welfare programs can be categorized into 2 types. One is something which is very common, what we call as identity fraud. And for years, since many of the panelists are from the government, I'm sure it is a phenomena in their states as well, what we call bogus beneficiaries or ghost beneficiaries. So a person gets a welfare scheme benefit in the name of a non-existing person or someone who is a ghost, so to say. So very common in, let us say, ration delivery or pensions and things like that. And then there is a phenomena which is called duplicate beneficiary. So a person is getting the same welfare scheme benefits multiple times. So now these kind of identity frauds with Aadhaar, that has been more or less reduced, or in some cases completely eliminated also from most of the welfare schemes. So this is one benefit that Aadhaar has brought in, that identity related misuse. Now there is no question of any ghost beneficiary, no question of the same person getting benefits twice, but something else continues to remain in the system, which also is the source of a very significant portion of leakages, which I call eligibility fraud. See, every welfare scheme have certain eligibility criteria. The most common criteria and the most obvious criteria is that it is meant for, these are meant for poor people. But many times, even after the identity is established, I mean, the person who is receiving the benefit is proven to be the same person who he claims to be. In certain cases, the field officer or the system itself is not able to detect the eligibility of the person because of the limitation. So, for example, I may be a non-poor person, but I may be getting subsidized benefits from the government for food grains under the ration system. So, how do you ensure that eligibility is also kind of determined in a manner which is very objective, does not give rise to any discretion, and the system is accountable for the decisions on checking the eligibility of the beneficiary. So what we have found out in Telangana, actually we have got a very good experience of detecting eligibility and minimizing eligibility frauds. We have created a platform which is called Samagra Vedika. So this is a Telugu word. Samagra means comprehensive. Vedika is a platform. So it's a platform which kind of, I'll explain in a bit what this platform does. But the point which I was trying to make is that why is it that Aadhaar alone is not sufficient to take care of these eligibility issues itself. So Aadhaar, of course, is collected mandatorily for all the welfare schemes. But of course, as I said, using Aadhaar authentication, the citizen can be uniquely identified, but his economic indicators details are not available. As Aadhaar is not seeded, let us say, with economic indicator databases such as properties or transportation and so on and so forth. So it is very difficult to determine whether you are eligible for a particular welfare program just using Aadhaar. And similarly, as you know, there are multiple databases. There are property database, other kinds of housing database, registration database, transportation database, the municipal corporation database, and so on and so forth. But there is no common identifier. And as we know, Supreme Court has also prohibited the use of Aadhaar beyond a point. So you can't really use Aadhaar also to link these various databases. And all these databases are in silos. The volumes are very large. Variety is very large. So as I said, but despite all these challenges, etc., we have been able very successfully in Telangana to create a platform called Samagra Vedika. And hopefully when you get back to me, Jayjeet, I'll be able to explain in some detail what this is all about. But for the present, let me stop here by mentioning that these are some of the common problems which we have faced endlessly for decades, as I said, in implementing welfare-oriented, beneficiary-oriented welfare schemes.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Mr. Ranjan. Moving to Mr. Tiwari of Punjab government. Mr. Tiwari, Punjab is actually now initiating the process of putting up a system for benefits delivery. And you've also had the experience of actually trying to integrate various departments by putting them all in one building and having a hybrid solution of physical and digital together. So, what are the challenges that you're facing in trying to roll out a benefits delivery system in Punjab?
Uh, Thanks, Jajit, and good afternoon, everyone. Very nice to hear Jayesh talk about the issues And I think he's really hit the nail on the head. I mean, starting with the issue of ghost beneficiaries, the duplicate beneficiaries, and subsequently how the eligibility issues are emanate in delivery of these welfare-oriented schemes. I think the first, and thanks Jajit for reminding me about my initiatives in Invest Punjab, because Invest Punjab, for some of you who may not have heard about it, in this was an initiative where we were able to deliver clearances for new investments under one roof. Now, you would all have heard, I mean, the moment you talk about it, people say, well, what's new in this? I mean, it's a single window system. We've been hearing it for a long time. And even now, government has been doing it. But we kind of moved on to it in December 2013. And what we did was we did a huge amount of process re-engineering. And what it did was actually we had identified that in certain cases, an investor had to actually reach out to 23 different departments. Some were common, some were specific to a particular investment. So we actually, by law, delegated the powers of granting clearances, including clearances as change of land use, consent to establish, feasibility clearances from the electricity side, labor side, Factories Act, all the Boilers Act, all these were actually conferred by law on one single person who was the CEO of Invest Punjab. I was lucky to be the first CEO of Invest Punjab, and we experimented a lot on this. We first of all re-engineered processes, and subsequently we backed it up by an IT platform. So what it did was that as an investor, I would only be applying to on a one portal, and subsequently all the required documentation was uploaded. And it was not that his documentation was then passed on to different entities, like even it would have to go digitally. It never went digitally to, say, a pollution control board or a power utility or the factories department. No, everything stayed on in the office of Invest Punjab, and it was processed by support staff that was available to me from different departments. And they were officers of the rank of chief engineers and others who were there to support me. And we would actually say a yes or a no to the investment there itself. So even if it would have been a no, it was done in a given time frame. So if I may share that experience, I mean, what it taught us was that you first need to re-engineer your processes. Today, if I may add to the challenges that Jayesh mentioned, I think another challenge that I would mention here is the processes itself. Today, if I have to, as a citizen, I want to take benefits from the government for a particular scheme. Let's take even the case of getting a social security pension. The entire process was designed earlier was designed earlier to be in a manner where a person or files would move physically. Today, we have the advantage of technology, and there are a lot of times when we see that the processes are backed up by IT without re-engineering them. Now, I think what we really need to do is, first of all, we need to re-engineer the processes which deliver these benefits. And another thing that we've done in Punjab was that again we tried to do it in a physical way first. So we launched a scheme called the Mahatma Gandhi Sarbat Vikas Yojana, and it was launched about 3 years back. And what we did was that as a team, people would go from village to village, and there, whether it was a ration card or a social security or anything related to your scholarships, everything, all these beneficiary-oriented schemes, they would all get together and move from village to village so that you can identify the people and reach them. Now, different governments have used different concepts, different terminologies, Sarkar Aapke Dwar, etc. But here, it was not a leader or a senior official going, but a team of people who could actually go there, identify the beneficiary in the village, talk to him, get his documentation done, and then make sure that, because what happens is most of the time, let's face it, most of the certificates, most of the verification is actually done on the basis of the statement or the report of a patwari. I mean, you call him a talati or whatever it is in different parts of the country. But what we have seen and the patwari either suo motu on his own, or he depends on the statement of somebody else, a nambardar, for example, or village headman or a sarpanch. And invariably, the report says, based on the information provided by nambardar so-and-so, let's say Anirudh Tiwari is a resident of so-and-so village, he belongs to XYZ caste, his income is below this. And subsequently, every single officer just countersigns it. Based on the report of Patwari, the Naib Tahsildar signs it. Based on the report of Naib Tahsildar, the SDM signs it. Based on the report of the Tahsildar, the DM signs it. So there's got to be some kind of a process engineering here, first of all. And I think that's a very, very important issue that we have to see when we are looking at identification and delivery of benefits to this. And the second point, and I'm glad Amit Shukla gave us that presentation in Chandigarh, was that we have to, I as a citizen, so we've all now got these e-Seva kendras by different names again in different parts of the country. As I go to a Seva Kendra and I say, I am Anirudh Tiwari, can you tell me what are my entitlements? So question, your name, your village, your age, your caste, if you know it. And then there is a particular, help wizard or whatever you may call it. And the person behind the Seva Kendra can do it. I can actually, if I have somebody to help me, whether it is a customer hiring center in the village which is promoted by METI or our own, these are the kind of things that we need to do. And the important point here is that there are different data sets which are maintained by different departments. Today, all departments are operating in silos. Revenue department, agriculture department, food supplies department, welfare, social security, health, education, everybody is different, operating in silos and what we see in many states, at least in Punjab, I'm sure Telangana and Karnataka are way ahead of us in this, but here the data sets are not talking to each other. The issue of data interoperability and the issue of ownership of data, that single source of truth, where does it come from? Where does it emanate from? So Punjab has also recently come out with the state data policy, where we have tried to address all these issues of data ownership, of issues of single source of truth, of issues of data interoperability. These have to, because ultimately these have to talk to each other, so that all these challenges also that Jayesh mentioned about ghost beneficiaries, about deduplication, about the issue of eligibility, and people who hijack the system. A lot of times we see that people hijack the system to their benefit or circumvent it. These are taken care of. I'll stop at for the timing at this point, and any clarifications, questions, or opinions that may be required, I'll be happy to share my experiences later on. Thank you, Jayajit.
Thank you, Mr. Tiwari, and that's very enlightening. Moving to Mr. Vipin Singh, who is the CEO of Center for E-Governance at Karnataka, where they've actually implemented a benefits delivery system. Vipin, what has been your experience in implementing the benefits delivery system, and what have been the challenges that you faced while going through this process, along with Mr. Chawla?
Yes. Good afternoon, Jayajit, and good afternoon to all the other colleagues and sirs. In Karnataka, I would say this is still work in progress, but we have made some headway in addressing some of the challenges which were pointed out by Telangana and Punjab. Indeed, these are challenges which are faced by all the states across the country. So what we have tried to do is we have tried to build a platform where we address these challenges, and this entire stack is a 4-layered stack, and we have worked on these different components at different points of time, and now we are feeling that we can bring all these together. 2 years back, the state government decided that all the benefits payments to the beneficiaries will happen through a single portal. We called it a DBT portal, and all payments will be only strictly Aadhaar-based payments. And all the departmental applications shall connect to this DBT portal. And this, before initiating the payment, this portal will do both the identity verification through the Aadhaar and also the bank address verification from the banks before it is done. So this today in Karnataka, all the payments are only through this portal. Second was we have what is called Seva Sindhu portal. This is a single application in which all the government schemes and services are available for a citizen to apply and get the benefit. This connects to, and the state government had this policy that all the services of the state government to the citizen will be contactless, they will be cashless, and also they'll be paperless. So this has we are a big user of DigiLocker. So any citizen who applies, the Seva Sindhu portal opens a DigiLocker for him by default. So he can apply and he can get the, and this Seva Sindhu has all the schemes mapped into it. And there's a workflow for the backend departments to process and give the necessary document. This DigiLocker, of course, we had the challenge like Punjab had mentioned that how a citizen comes to know Karnataka has 1,000 odd schemes and how a citizen gets to know which scheme he is eligible for. So here we last year, we spoke to Amit and we have implemented this scheme discovery platform. This is a layer which sits on top of our Seva Sindhu. And we call it Suvidha. So right now, almost 116 schemes are available on the Seva platform where a citizen can log in and he has to answer some routine demographic related information he has to give, and then it gives the schemes which he is eligible. And also it also gives what are the benefits he is eligible for and what are the documents which are necessary to avail of those schemes. So this helps him in easily discovering the schemes and also apply. So once he selects on a scheme, it gets routed to the Seva Sindhu portal, and there he can apply for that particular scheme. Right now, as I said, we have around 116 schemes of around 10 departments, but this is work in progress. As far as the citizen experience of this, we are yet to gather that because it is still in a it's in a takeoff stage. We still have to reach the stage where it is used by the citizens in a substantial manner. We are also looking at development of a family ID, a family database of all the citizens. This is work in progress, and we are now able to connect almost 20 databases across different departments. What it means is a person who is getting social security benefits. We know what is his caste because it connects to the caste and income database of the revenue department. We also know if he has any land. We also know how much land he is owning. If he's having any benefit under say health department or education department, that is available to us. So we are, of course, we have to do a lot of circus to connect these because of limitations on use of Aadhaar, but we have used certain other IDs. We have certain tools like name matching tool, etc., to match these. And this we believe is helping us in trying to identify frauds, duplicate beneficiaries. In fact, we did a small pilot in a taluka, and then we just ran the birth and death data on the social security beneficiaries database, and we found that almost 10% of the people who were there in the death registry were also receiving the social security benefits. So the benefits are immense. It also helps us in not only exclusion but also inclusion. You can find that there are people who are BPL, old age pension holders, widows, but they do not have a ration card. So that kind of inclusion, so why they should not have a ration card, that list also can be prepared. The revenue department here is doing a small pilot now, where they say that we can give some of these government benefits without a citizen applying for those schemes. So that can be done if I have the citizen's this date of birth from a birth and death database or from some other database, and then as soon as he reaches 60 years, that list is available to the department. They can send it to the field for a quick verification, and then they can start initiating the old age pension to them. So, but we still have to answer a lot of questions. There are lot of issues that we need to address. But this, we believe that once this system is in place, then above the family database, which becomes the bottom layer, we can have the scheme discovery platform. On top of it, a common beneficiary management system for the entire state, rather than every department working in silos. And then on top of it, the DBT. And once the payment through a DBT is done, it again feeds back into the family ID, where it updates. So it's a dynamic system with a feedback, so that the family ID database is constantly updated and it is in current stage. This is what I have to say at the moment.
Great.
Back to you, Jayajit.
Thank you so much, Vipin. Vipin, I have a quick question to you. You seem to have resolved the issue of Aadhaar and circumvented that problem and still able to connect people without using the Aadhaar number. If you could just share in
Yes.
2 minutes, how have you done that?
See, while we cannot share an Aadhaar of a citizen to other department, but UID has allowed us that the hash of the Aadhaar can be shared. So we have used the hash of the Aadhaar from different databases to match the ID. On top of it, we have also tried to do a name match, so that to check whether the seeding of the Aadhaar in the various databases was done correctly. So once we are able to match the hash and also able to match the name, we find that these are the records which are common. Of course, there are multiple databases where seeding has not been done, so we have to do a lot of circuits, lot of other tools to match it. For example, transitive match, if A is matching to B and B is matching to C with some other ID, then we can match A to C. So we have to do, so currently we have around 20 large databases which we have been able to match. But now we have still to see, for example, the question of the quality of data remains. You find that date of birth is written in different manner in different databases. Even the formats are not done correctly. So as Punjab has done, we have also realized the need to have a common, to have a state data policy, and also mandate the use of implementation of common data standards, as Government of India has mandated by all the user departments. So that will, I think, will help resolve. But this is a process which will take care of these issues as we go along.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Vipin. That brings me to you, to Mr. Amit Shukla. Amit, in fact, your name was taken twice by the panelists here. What is it that your startup is bringing to the table, and how are you solving this issue of an optimized benefits delivery to the citizens?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Jajit, first of all, having me here. And thank you, Andu, sir, for getting me with this eminent panelist. Truly appreciate that. And so what I will do, because JS sir has already put in a very logical and a chronological order. So I will just add few points, right? And then we will see that how can we solve this problem. So when we talk about the eligibility fraud, so in addition to that, the main problem is the privacy. If you are having all the information about the citizen at one place, even if Aadhaar is allowing it, that's a different topic together. But how can we make sure that the privacy is there? And more importantly, we are using citizen data only for on a purpose, for a particular purpose, not like the complete data is with us all the time. And the second very important thing is, if we have these many connections, then we have to manage the uptime and the availability of these databases so that we can fulfill the request from the citizen on runtime. Otherwise, if the circle will start rolling because we are not getting a response from a target data system, that can create a problem. Yeah, to counter that problem, we have to get that at one place, but that creates another problem. And that is, if data become inconsistent between this system and the target system. So, and if I put the synchronization kind of a mechanism, that will be very performance heavy, because you're talking about millions of data with more than 300 attributes. And how do you manage this syncing thing from a technology point of view and from a privacy point of view? So that's a very important thing. That's a topic of research, and we have some case studies outside India that how this thing is managed. But one thing is for sure, if we have to manage this, the data cannot be stored at multiple places. As soon as you start storing same data at multiple places, and this is what I think Anirudh sir also mentioned, that if income certificate is wrong, right, and there will be many data that will be wrong, how to factor that problem? So this problem can happen in two ways. If my data from where I'm checking the income is not updated with the revenue department data, where the actual income is stored, if there is a lag of 1 day, there is a possibility I will give benefit to the wrong person just because of the lag of 1 day. So that is a problem. And then we also discussed about death certificate. If the data is not in sync with the pension database, then we may giving a pension to the person who has already died. But if we have to be realistic, do we have that kind of IT maturity in this country and those kind of databases? The answer is no. That is what my startup does. That provides best of the solution in principle, without a limitation of availability of the data and very good connections among the databases. One thing I would like to add, after the eligible, there is one more step, that is needy, right? And need is very important because we don't have government does not have a infinite budget, right? And even if do so, they have an infinite budget. They don't want to give to the people who are not needy. Whereas eligibility just tells from the policy point of view, this person is eligible. He may not be needy because of two reasons. If the income certificate is wrong, what Andu sir has mentioned, how can we use this data point along with the other data point using artificial intelligence to indicate that though income certificate is correct, but the income is outlier. Usually for this kind of a person, this income is an outlier, and this can be challenged. We will not want to challenge what's a government issued income certificate now, but we can deprioritize the need score so that whenever there is a conflict in data, we should play with the need score so that the people who are more needy, they get the benefit. So this solves even the limitation of the budget problem as well. Last thing is, another way to detect fraud or control the benefit delivery. Again, we have to use artificial intelligence. And this time what we have to find, what is a total benefit delivered to a family, right? Well, irrespective of 3 program, 5 program. And for that, we have to have a citizen profile. But at the same time, we cannot have the privacy challenge going on. So it's a something that, again, that's an area of expertise that easy of bring in, that how without compromising on the privacy, still you can use around 100 data point around the family to identify whether this family is getting how much benefit in totality, right? So if there is a family that is getting, let's say 3x, then the average of that particular geography, though the data is correct, they are eligible, but we have to check there is something wrong. And for that, we can create a fraud case. So yeah, I will limit in the first round here only. Oh, yeah, go to you back, Jajit.
Sure. Amit, a quick rejoinder. What you seem to be solving is a problem of how to provide the benefits in an optimized manner and how to make sure that the needy get the benefits. But how do you discover who to provide the benefits to? Now, right now, the people go out and try and struggle to find out the benefits. How do you help the government find who to provide the benefits to?
So there are 2 parts basically, right? One is, as you rightly said, eligible, and then the needy. For the eligible, it can't be subjective. It's as JSR has mentioned, these are the objective rules. You can't play with them. They are written in the policy, and they are very objective. But the problem is when you try to put all these rules at one place for 300 welfare program, the number of rules grow to like 20,000, 25,000. And to satisfy these rules, you need more than 300 data points from the citizen. But not from all the citizens, we need 300 data points. So what we have done, we have mapped the dependency of the rules as well as the interdependency of the data. So for example, if someone is coming to my, let's say the EasyGov platform or the white label platform, the person says that I'm physically challenged. And one thing is important is that we take data from the citizen, and then we write later on, we check it from the government. So for the eligibility, we don't need any database, right? We don't need any database in the state government. It's simply that because we have configured the rule in such an intelligent manner and the data dependencies, interdependencies in such a logical manner, that citizen in less than 20 seconds travels through more than 20,000 rules and get to know what exactly he or she can get.
Excellent. It sounds music to my ears. Moving to Rajiv. Rajiv, SAP has pioneered this concept of benefit delivery as a service. What really is that concept, and how does it help, and what is the technology needed to really implement it, and does it really exist?
Yeah, I thank you, Jajit, first of all, for having me on this call and sharing dais with such eminent panelists. So Jajit, first I want to start by saying that great work has happened in the country, right, for implementation of DBT and the way we have utilized technology. And we've heard eminent panelists talk about their work done in respective states. We at SAP and possibly globally treat benefit management in two kinds, right? One is the cash benefit through DBT, and then benefit in kind through products or services. And while India has made significant progress in DBT of cash and Aadhaar and various technologies have been great supporter of that, but benefit as a service is still something that citizen of India has to experience, in my opinion. It exists possibly as temporary and as election goodies. However, I believe that benefits as a service is a technological possibility. We have delivered it in other parts of the world as well, particularly for the benefits in kind. So what is it like? So whether it is distribution of laptops, mobile phones that we hear in India, or cycles, etc., right? The important element of any service delivery or benefit delivery of this kind is to maintain a central pool of service providers, their contracts, and an end-to-end tracking of service orders, built in with a feedback mechanism to get an input from beneficiary on whether the intended service has been delivered or not, right? So the service can be as simple as in what we've done in some part of the world is that disabled person has to get a service where a healthcare worker has to reach him to provide a service which is provided possibly by government for underprivileged people. Those are again delivered by partners. So on the partner side, who's partnering for delivery of this service, it is important to keep a real-time track of delivery of services, make payments in timely and accurate manner to ensure continuity of services. And finally, it is critical to provide channel for registering any grievance that a citizen might have and a solution for the same. Now, it all sounds fairly good, but is it possible? So the broad terms that I used are the contract management with service providers, the partners, the feedback mechanisms, and of course I heard Mr. Singh talk about the experience and the feedback of citizens, which is a big thing today, right? I mean, what good is a benefit delivery and what benefit does it give back to government when the citizen is not able to give the feedback that they were really satisfied with the benefit that they received. Now, all this is possible by utilizing an integrated platform where data is centrally available to ensure visibility across application. And this is one problem which is easier told than solved. But we at SAP, we have only solved such complex problems at various organizations. And I believe the challenges which we talked about, which was identity fraud, which has been solved by Aadhaar, or eligibility fraud, which Amit talked about, and we are working very closely with Amit to build an end-to-end service delivery platform. The challenge also which needs to be solved beyond leakage is the timing of benefit delivery. I mean, I always say that what is the benefit, what is the point of giving a benefit if the pregnant mother is getting nutrition after the delivery? Right. So the timing of benefit beyond leakage is also very important, which can be monitored by these solutions, these contracts, these delivery timelines, which can be monitored. And why do I say that? Have we done that? Of course, we have delivered. We work with multiple social service agencies, and I said right from skilling the work to social insurance, elderly care, or nutritional programs, and we work with 55,000 partners who deliver benefits to almost 200 million beneficiaries. So when I say this, we've experimented this, and benefit as a service is a technological possibility. Jayji.
Great. Thank you, Rajiv. I think that's very, very interesting input you have given. Coming back to Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, sir, you talked about the Samagra Vedika, which was also highly appreciated by the Economic Survey of 2018-19. And it compared to the revolution that was brought in the 2009 by US in terms of its transparency. So how is this platform actually helping in the specific use of providing benefits to the citizens of Telangana?
Sure. So, Jajit, first of all, I'm very glad that all other panelists have also spoken about the need of utilizing data sets that are already available with us in improving the targeting of beneficiaries, making the targeting more precise and more accurate. So Samagra Vedika is an effort in that direction, and we have been implementing it for the past 5 years now. It was introduced in 2016. And I mentioned a while ago that there are three big problems with databases, which is of volumes. So government databases are huge, humongous. And then there is lots of variety in the sense that attributes are of diverse natures, and even a very basic attribute like name may be spelt in different ways in different databases. So my name, for example, is Jayesh Ranjan, but somewhere I find this in Telangana in particular, a very commonly wrong way of writing my name as J.S. Ranjan. So I don't have any middle name with alphabet S, but somehow many people think that my name is J.S. Ranjan. So, I mean, and there are so many other things. Jayesh is spelled wrongly. Ranjan can be made as Rajan. So even my own name can be spelled in 10 different ways in 30 different databases. So there's tremendous amount of variety. And of course, as Mr. Shukla pointed out, timeliness, near real time. So that velocity also. So these are three big problems, as I call, of three V's. So volume, variety, and velocity. So Samagra Vedika addresses all these three challenges. And as we learned about Karnataka, we have linked 30 government databases using an algorithm which does not utilize Aadhaar at all. It uses other non-unique attributes like name, father's name, and address, just these three. So if I know a person's name, if I know a person's father's name, and if I know the address, and as I mentioned, all these three are written in different ways in different databases. Names can be written differently, father's names can be spelt differently, and address, as we know in India, there is so much of imprecision about address. But despite all these limitations, the way this algorithm has got trained over a period of time, again through machine learning, is that our accuracy levels are very, very high today. And I'll just give you an example. I have spoken about ration cards earlier, and I'll continue to give this example of ration cards. So while large number of people have ration cards, in fact, at one point in time, there was a very peculiar situation that there were more number of ration cards than the population itself. So obviously it means that the distribution of ration card was done in a very kind of a loose way, and literally everyone who asked for a ration card was given one ration card. But then the government decided to kind of rationalize this whole business of who is eligible for that ration card, and certain criteria were defined. So for example, it was presumed that if anyone is having more than 5 acres of dry land, perhaps he's not a poor person. If someone who owns a four-wheeler, perhaps he's not a poor person. If someone who is working in the government sector or the public sector, perhaps he's not a poor person. Someone who is having a large business enterprise in his address, let us say an oil mill or a rice mill or a shop, maybe he's not a poor person. So these criteria were decided. But obviously, you can't go door to door and then bring in the same inefficiencies in the system, which in the first place allowed these hundreds and thousands of ineligible ration cards to be distributed. So Samagra Vedika was utilized to find out. So for example, let us say four-wheelers cannot be presumed to be poor people. So when we match the ration card database and the database of the transport department of who are the four-wheeler owners, we found a large number of people who were found to be in both the databases, and obviously they were eliminated. Similarly, we found a large number of people who are working in the government or whose very near relatives like spouse or children or parent are working in the government services and who are found to be having a ration card. Similarly, lots of people who pass away, but their names are not struck from the ration. So they in effect become ghost beneficiaries. They continue to draw ration even if they don't exist anymore. And I have numbers with me. Almost 650,000 death records were processed very recently. And we found that out of the 650,000, almost 300,000 people who passed away are still figuring in the ration card database. So we have been able to use this Samagra to weed out lots of these ineligible cards, ineligible beneficiaries. Therefore, the targeting is better. And during this pandemic time, when our government decided that we will ourselves provide some financial grant to all the poor people during this lockdown by utilizing the ration card database, etc., the targeting was perfect and the targeting was very precise. All the eligible people who had suffered hardships during this period, they received that benefit. And we have used it for various other welfare programs. I gave you just one example of the ration cards, but for example, housing is another very contentious area where the government constructs houses for poor people through spending huge subsidies. And again, in the past, lots of scams have happened. That process has been streamlined quite a lot. There are scholarship schemes, there are old age pensions, there are some schemes targeted at the girl children in our state, where parents of girl children are given some financial grant. So in multiple welfare programs, the Samagra Vedika has turned out to be a very precise tool in improving the targeting, improving our outreach. And therefore, when you are able to ensure that only the correct beneficiaries, the eligible ones, receive the benefit, you are able to cover more of them. So the level of satisfaction is very high. Good governance standards are set. No one feels that one can play with the law and get away with everything. So it has tremendous multiplier benefits. And as you mentioned, Jayji, economic survey last year identified all these features about this solution, and we feel very proud about it. And of course, we continue to improve and refine. So as I said, when we started in 2016, the accuracy levels were just around 65 to 68%. And through 5 years of machine learning, we have now been able to raise it beyond 93%. But we want to improve it much further and deliver much more targeted programs for the benefit of the people.
This is absolutely awesome, Mr. Ranjan. This is very, very awesome initiative that has been taken. Moving to Mr. Tiwari, I believe you have a comment on or an additional point to what our fellow panelists had said. And along with your comment, if you could also help us understand how Government of Punjab would like to take things forward, given the complexities and given what we heard from the other panelists, and including what you had mentioned in terms of data accuracies and data and the single point of truth, as you said, being a challenge in the government.
Thanks, Jajit. And actually, my comment and the issue that I wanted to flag, part of it has been answered by Jayesh, but I'd just like to continue on that. And the issue that came to my mind was that there is also now tagged with this, while we have been talking about the efficient use of resources, Amit mentioned that no government has infinite resources. And it is important for us to focus that the resources that the governments have are used for the benefit of the people at the bottom of the pyramid, and as we've been hearing about it. Now, my question here was, and this I think would link it, link up to two or three things that have been mentioned by the panelists. One panelist mentioned about taking family as a unit and then making sure that all these benefits that any member of the family may be getting are collected at one source. I'm sure you all would be aware of that. Haryana has initiated this program of having a Parivar Pehchan Patra, and Haryana is doing something on that. But what I really wanted to say here was that there is also a need for us to monitor, and I don't know if Jayesh can throw some light on it, that how do people graduate out of this benefit system. So, for example, if we are able to collect the database of a family today, a family is poor and it is, let us say, receiving some kind of social security benefits. Tomorrow, let's say one of the members of the family, the son or the daughter, gets into a government job, and which means that immediately the income levels of the family have risen, and the family probably is no more in need of that particular scheme. Now, does our system also identify this? Does the velocity aspect, which is a regular updation of the databases, taking family as a unit, flag that this person has now graduated out of that particular program. Something like this probably would be happening once you have a person flagged as having passed away and is now figuring in the database of the people who have died, and hence probably his social security benefits or other benefits would be stopped. But is that something that that happens while taking family as a unit, that people graduate out of it? So which means that perhaps today it's very surprising that I have not heard governments take pride in saying that so many people over the last so many years, because of the benefits that they have given, have graduated out of poverty or whatever it is. For some strange reason, I once heard in a particular meeting somebody saying that, we have increased the number of people who are getting, during that time we used to have these yellow cards which would identify people below the poverty line. The number of people with yellow cards have increased, and I would say, I mean, why is this guy taking pride in the increase in the number of people below the poverty line? I mean, okay, if you have been able to cover people who were earlier not covered and now you have covered them, it's fine. But then those absolute numbers did not really match, or even the percent figures did not match about the percentage of people who were below the poverty line in that particular state. So that is one point which I thought I'll mention. And Jajit, you, as you said, that the issue that Punjab government today is grappling again is about the interoperability of databases and how we need to make sure that databases talk to each other. We've come out of the database is a data policy, as I mentioned. We are also working on an enterprise architecture now for the state, and so where again we would set the rules for an enterprise through an enterprise architecture policy also, where we are able to ensure that people who need to access particular data, people who need to get onboarded into a particular way on the particular platform, are able to do that. And that's something again which is work in progress, and I think I'll be able to update the panelists probably next time we meet on what we have been able to do in this regard. But these are two areas on which we are working in parallel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Tiwari. Moving to Vipin. Vipin, we have seen the 360-degree impact of Samagra Vedika as a platform. What are the headline takeaways from the implementations of Government of Karnataka, and how can other states benefit and learn from what your team and Mr. Chawla's team has done in Karnataka? You're on mute, Vipin. Yeah, it's unmuted now.
Yeah. So listening to Sir Jayesh Ranjan sir from Telangana, I think we have been followers of Andhra in IT, and probably in this aspect also we are following them. Maybe we would like to touch base with them and learn from their experience on matching different data sets of the government. As far as Karnataka is concerned, we still have to answer a lot of questions. We are still grappling with a lot of sub-processes, processes on how we intend to use. We have some vision, but still I would say it is work in progress, and maybe an year from now we should be in a better position to say something about our project. Right now, what I can say is that it is work in progress.
Great. Thank you, Vipin. Moving to Amit, could you tell us how your platform could look at some of the challenges that has been posed by the government functionaries in this panel?
Sure, thank you. EasyGov, though we start with this eligibility and needy kind of a thing, but if you ask me what is the vision that we want to drive, so it's a threefold. First one is from program-centric to family-centric benefit. The second one, what Anil sir has just pointed out, instead of making people dependent on the welfare, how can make it a progressive welfare where the objective should be to move people away from the welfare. Third one, and that's a root cause of many problems that we are discussing in this panel, that we want to have a 360 review, but as soon as we create 360 review, we create duplicate data, and then if data doesn't get changed, we end up giving welfare to a wrong person. So what is important is, because eligibility is not a constant thing. It's a dynamic thing and changes with the time. And the reason is because the data also changes with the time. So if I manage the eligibility at once and I say that this is a life cycle of this person to get this benefit, I will be always doing some mistake. So when I decide the eligibility is a concept for that point in time only. After a second, he may not be eligible, or before a second, he may not be eligible. That means till the time I cannot decouple the eligibility rule from data, I can't handle this. Second, if I can't handle the data dynamism, I will never at any state will tell you the true eligibility. To do that, we have to get into one data, one source, one owner philosophy. And I would say that eligibility will be checked at the every payment time. Now the problem is, because we do not have such level of automation and we cannot query so much databases, there we can still manage it by putting some lag to respond to the people. But I think a lag of 4 or 5 days, and if data is not available, 10 days will not bother that much, right? Than what the leakages and the and the fraud that is happening. Yeah. So I will keep it brief in the interest of time, but this is some indication.
Sure. Thank you, Amit. And we have almost completely run out of time. But quickly, Rajiv, how can SAP solve the problem that Mr. Tiwari talked about, which is interoperability and the whole of government issue? If we just keep it very brief.
Yeah, Jajit, I think data has been talked about a lot during this time. So I cannot re-emphasize enough, and I don't want to talk much about it. But as I heard what Mr. Ranjan initially had said, that all the departments' data need to be brought in and checked against benefit or identification of the beneficiary, right? So to divide the eligibility now as a concept that we're talking about, the critical aspect and possibly the last step in technology intervention, that all the moving parts of the government, beneficiary identification, registration, application process, benefit calculation, then disbursement, and finally accounting of the same at a state level, all the work, all this, need to work together in a seamless and integrated manner. And whole of government approach requires not only technology, Jayajit, and which is absolutely available, which we can do, but also the will and the intent of the departments together, so that when a beneficiary he's coming, I am, as Rajiv saying, when I'm seeing that, okay, I'm eligible for a scheme at my level, I should just be able to apply and then just let the system run on its own. Whether it's an education department, and then it has to go to treasury to disburse, and then it comes back to me. That's the concept as whole of government. Technologically, very much possible, right? And we do this, right? In enterprise also, in pure public sector enterprises, this is how they do, right? I mean, large complex goes through a big workflow, highly scalable, and it is absolutely possible here. The point is whether there is one stakeholder, one department, whether a social welfare department, who owns this entire process and says that, okay, I'll nail this. And as long as we have that, I think we as SAP are absolutely competent to deliver something like that. So I just wanted to end there, Jayajit.
Thank you, Rajiv. And I think it's been very, very enlightening session. I think one of the key takeaways is that of the 3 V's that Mr. Jayesh Ranjan mentioned about volume, variety, and velocity. And I would just like to add one more V which came up as part of this discussion, is about veracity and veracity of the data. So I think perhaps we can look at the 3 V's plus the one more V of veracity. And I think that's critical for having an optimized benefits delivery system. So thank you so much for having this very, very enlightening discussion. Thank you, Mr. Jayesh Ranjan. Thank you, Mr. Tiwari. Thank you, Rajiv Singh. And thank you, Amit. And thank you, Vipin. I hope there was no fire, because I heard some fire being talked about. I hope everything's under control. Thank you so much. Thanks for this session.
Thanks, Jaji. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaji.
Bye, everyone.